in section 6, guys, we're going to talk about ratios and proportions, okay? So we're going to compare ratios and solve proportions. So ratio is just a comparison of two numbers. We use division to compare those two numbers, okay? So it's read 3 to 4, right? You could read it out. You could see it written as 3:4, which also means 3 to 4, or 3/4. Most often you're going to use the fraction because that's the one that's most useful to us. So 3, you'd still read this 3 to 4. Right? A proportion is just two of these ratios put together with an equal sign, right? So they're equivalent ratios, so they're equal to each other. We solve proportions by finding the cross products, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the cross products together. So you can rewrite this as A times D equals B times C, and that's going to help us solve our proportions. Now rate is just a ratio of two measurements having different units, okay? So miles per hour, or cups per gallon, or things like that. That's what a rate is. So we're going to first determine whether these two ratios are equivalent. Okay, so set up our proportion and test it to see if it's true. Right, so lots of different ways to test this. Okay, you can see if it takes the same thing to multiply on top and on bottom to get from one to the other. Or you could reduce both of them and see if they become the same, or find the cross products. Right, so for this one we're just going to reduce because the left one's already reduced. The one on the right side here, when we reduce it, you divide both by 7 and you get 7/8. So you see that they are the exact same. Right, 7/8 equals 7/8, so the answer is yes, they are the same. Now number 2, we're actually going to use cross products to determine if they are a proportion. So I'm going to multiply just like that. Okay, so 0.25 times 2 equals 1.25 times 0.6. Right, 2 times 0.25 is just 0.5, and 1.25 times 0.6 is 0.75. So are those equivalent to each other? No, they're not. The answer is no. And B here, same idea. We're going to multiply the cross products. So we've got 2 times 20 equals 2.5 times 16. Okay, 2 times 20 is 40. 2.5 times 16 is also 40, which is the same thing, so the answer would be yes. Now we're going to actually use these proportions to solve for a variable. Okay, so when you cross multiply here, we cross multiply every time we see a proportion. We get 8 times n equals 12 times 3, which is 36. Divide both sides by n to get n by itself, or divide by 8 to get n by itself. And the answer is 36 divided by 8 is 4.5. Now in B, we get a little bit more complicated. It's easier to write it out completely. So 4 times x plus 4 equals 12 times 3. Now, the reason I wrote it out like that is because we don't want to just multiply the x times 4. We have to distribute that 4 into both. Okay, so we've got 4x plus 16 equals 36. So 4x equals 20. When you subtract 16 to both sides, and divide both sides by 4, to get x equals 5. Now a couple word problems here. The gear on a bicycle is 8 to 5, right? So we're going to be using 8 over 5, right? This means for every 8 turns of the pedals, so those are pedals, 8 refers to the pedal turns, the wheel turns 5 times. So the wheels turn 5 times. Suppose the bicycle wheel turns 2,435 times. So we're talking about the wheel there. So it tells us we're going to be using the bottom. Turns that many times during a trip. How many times would you crank the pedals? So that's where the x is going to be. So I need to cross multiply here. I'm going to get 5x equals, you gotta get my handy dandy calculator out. 2,435 times 8 is 19,480. Divide both sides by 5 to get x by itself, and x equals 3,896 times. So that's how many times that the pedals are going to turn. Now the last one is working with a scale. Okay, so a scale is another way, another time we're going to use proportions, so like in a map. So for a road atlas, the scale for a map of Connecticut is 5 inches equals 45 or 41 miles. So 5 over 41 is what we're going to use. Remember, I like to write the units on the side for word problems because it's hard to keep track of. So 5 inches over 41 miles. Okay, just remember that the top is inches, bottom's miles. So what distance in miles represents 2.5 inches on the map? 2.5 over x. Okay, when you cross multiply here, you're going to get 5x equals 2.5 times 41. Which is 102.5. And then divide by 5 to get your x by itself. So x equals 20.5. That's it.